I was lying on a stretcher in the back of an ambulance when I called my mother. My heart was doing something wrong. The paramedic had already said the words emergency surgery, and my 2-year-old daughter Winona was back at our apartment with my elderly neighbor because I had no one else to call. I needed my mother to go get her. That was all. One phone call, one simple request. She said no, she had Drake concert tickets. And that was the moment 8 years of silence finally made sense to me. Before I tell you everything, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from. If this story hits close to home, hit that like button and subscribe, because what the emergency room doctor said at the end of this changed everything I thought I knew about my own family. Now let me take you back to where this really started. I did not grow up feeling invisible all at once. It happened the way most damage happens, gradually then completely. My brother Cale is 4 years older than me. Growing up in our house in Decatur, Georgia, Cale was the story my parents told at every dinner table, every family gathering, every conversation with neighbors. When Cale made the school baseball team, my father called 3 relatives to announce it. When Cale quit that same team 6 weeks later, nobody mentioned it again. It was just quietly erased, the way inconvenient things were always erased in our house. I was 11 years old when I won first place at the district science fair. I had worked on that project for 6 weeks, staying up past 10 o'clock on school nights, borrowing books from the library because we did not have the internet at home yet. The afternoon I came home with the ribbon, my parents were getting ready to take Cale out to dinner. He had just been selected for his school's junior varsity basketball team. My mother glanced at my ribbon and said, "That is nice, honey," and went back to helping Cale find his good shoes. We went to the restaurant as a family that night, and the entire dinner was about Cale. I ate my food and did not say a word about the ribbon. I stopped expecting recognition after that. I just started doing things for myself. By the time I was 18, I had applied for and received a partial academic scholarship to the University of North Carolina at Charlotte. I did not ask my parents for money. I did not want to ask. I worked 3 jobs through all 4 years, early morning shifts at a coffee shop near campus, afternoon hours as an office assistant at the university's administrative building, and weekend food delivery runs. I graduated with a degree in accounting, no student loan debt, and a job offer already in hand. During those same 4 years, my parents paid full tuition for Cale at a private college in Tennessee. He failed his first year and they petitioned the school to allow him to repeat it. He failed again and transferred to a different program. Halfway through his 3rd year, Cale decided college was not for him and dropped out entirely. My parents told people he was finding his path. What that meant in practice was that Cale moved back into the house, contributed nothing financially, and spent his days doing very little while my parents covered every expense without complaint. I never said anything about it. I told myself it was not my business. Then I turned 26. I had been working as an accountant in Charlotte for 2 years and earning a stable income. My parents called me one evening and explained that their landlord was raising the rent on their house and they were short on money that month. Could I help, just this once? I sent $800. The next month they called again, a medical copay they had not expected. I sent $600, then $1,200. Then it became a standing arrangement, not spoken out loud but understood. Every month money moved from my account to theirs. By the time Winona was born, I was sending $3,800 a month to cover the rent on a 2-bedroom apartment they had moved into in the Buckhead area of Atlanta. Over 8 years, the total amount I sent came to $364,800. My parents told people that their children took care of them. Plural, both children. When neighbors or extended family asked how they managed so well in retirement, my mother would smile and say, "Our kids look out for us." Cale accepted this framing without correction. He was present at family events, received the praise, and said nothing about where the money actually came from. I know because I was there for some of those conversations. I heard my mother say "we" and both of them while Cale nodded. And I said nothing either. I do not fully understand why I stayed quiet for so long. I think I believed that if I kept giving, eventually something would shift, that one day the imbalance would correct itself and they would see what I had been doing. When Winona was born, I was 32 and recovering alone in a hospital room in Charlotte. My then husband and I had separated 4 months into the pregnancy. My parents said the drive from Atlanta was too far. They mailed a small box of newborn clothes, and a card that said congratulations. Cale sent a text message with a balloon emoji. I brought Winona home by myself. I set up the crib by myself. I learned how to do everything by myself. And I kept sending the money every single month. Winona was 18 months old when I first noticed something was wrong with my heart. It started as an irregular flutter during ordinary moments, while I was carrying her up the stairs, while I was sitting at my desk reviewing spreadsheets, while I was lying in bed at night with nothing physically demanding happening at all. I ignored it for 3 weeks because I was tired and busy and told myself it was stress. Then one morning I felt my heart lurch so hard it made me grab the counter, and I called my doctor that afternoon. My cardiologist, Dr. Morrison, ran a full workup over 2 appointments. The diagnosis was ventricular tachycardia, an arrhythmia originating in the lower chambers of the heart. In my case, the episodes were increasing in frequency and duration. Dr. Morrison recommended a catheter ablation procedure, a surgery done under general anesthesia to correct the electrical pathways causing the arrhythmia. He scheduled it for 7 weeks out to give me time to arrange childcare and take leave from work. I called my parents after the second appointment and told them what was happening, not to ask for anything, just to inform them the way you inform family about something serious. My mother listened and then said I should drink more water and get more sleep. My father said doctors these days were too quick to recommend surgery. Neither of them asked a follow-up question. Neither of them called back to check on me. I made my own arrangements. I lined up a colleague named Petra who lived nearby and had offered before to help with Winona. I submitted my paperwork for medical leave. I packed a hospital bag. The night before the scheduled surgery was a Thursday. I picked Winona up from daycare, cooked dinner for the 2 of us, gave her a bath and read her 2 books before she fell asleep. I sat on the edge of her bed for a few minutes after, watching her breathe. I had written out a full instruction sheet for Petra, Winona's schedule, her food preferences, which stuffed animal she needed to sleep, the name and number of her pediatrician. Everything was accounted for. At 9 o'clock I was standing in the kitchen when the pain hit, not the flutter I had grown used to. This was a hard, squeezing pressure across my chest that dropped me to one knee before I understood what was happening. My right hand went numb. I sat down on the kitchen floor, put my back against the refrigerator, and recognized that I was not going to be able to wait until tomorrow morning. I called 911 with my left hand. My neighbor across the hall, a woman in her 70s named Mrs. Delors, heard me on the phone through the wall and knocked on my door within 2 minutes. I had barely spoken to her before that night. I told her what was happening and asked if she could stay with Winona until someone came for her. Mrs. Delors walked in, sat down on the couch and did not ask a single question. She just stayed. The paramedics arrived 7 minutes after my call. In the ambulance, I called my mother. I told her I was on my way to the hospital, that this was happening tonight instead of tomorrow, and that I needed someone to pick up Winona from Mrs. Delors. My mother said, "Tonight?" I said yes. She said, "We have the concert tonight. Drake, we bought those tickets months ago." I told her this was an emergency. She said, "Can you call someone else?" I said I was calling her. She said, "Valora, you are always so dramatic about everything. I am sure it is not as serious as it feels." I did not argue. I ended the call. I opened my banking application and transferred $5,800 out of the account I used for their monthly payments into my personal savings account. My hands were shaking, but I completed every step. Then I called the cardiac unit's after-hours emergency childcare referral line, a number Dr. Morrison's office had given me when I first scheduled the surgery, for exactly this kind of situation. A woman named Nora answered. I gave her Winona's name, Mrs. Delors's address, the hospital name, and my room information. Nora said she would be there within 30 minutes. The ambulance pulled into the hospital bay. I put my phone in my jacket pocket. The surgery lasted 4 hours. During the procedure, my heart stopped once. The surgical team intervened and restored rhythm. This is not something I experienced consciously. I only learned it afterward, when Dr. Morrison came to my recovery room the following morning and walked me through everything that had happened, step by step, in the calm and direct way he always spoke. While I was in surgery, Nora sat with Winona in the family waiting area down the hall. She had picked Winona up from Mrs. Delors, brought her a bag with a few books and a box of crackers, and stayed the entire time. When Winona cried and asked for me, Nora held her and told her that her mother was being taken care of and would be okay. My parents did not come. Cale did not come. No one from my family was in that building. 3 days after surgery, I was still in the hospital, monitored and healing, with cardiac leads on my chest and a pain level that made sitting up take effort. Nora had brought Winona to visit that morning. My daughter had climbed carefully onto the bed beside me and fallen asleep against my arm. I opened my laptop on the bedside tray and logged into my bank account. I located the recurring transfer, $3,800 scheduled for the 15th of every month, and cancelled it. The confirmation came immediately. Then I opened my email and wrote one message addressed to my mother, my father, and Cale. It said, "I have cancelled the monthly financial support effective immediately. I do not have anything further to explain." I did not call. I did not wait for a response. I closed the laptop and looked at Winona sleeping. The reaction began within the hour. My mother called 7 times that first day. My father called 4 times. Cale called twice. I let every call go to voicemail. None of them left a message. On the 8th call, I answered. My mother's voice was steady, almost cheerful. She said there must have been a problem with the bank transfer and she was going to contact them to sort it out. I told her there was no error. I had cancelled it. A pause. She hung up. The following day, the tone changed. My mother sent a text. "You cannot do this to us. We are your parents." My father sent a separate message. "After everything we sacrificed for you, this is how you repay us." Cale sent, "You are being extreme. They are getting older. Think about what you are doing." I did not respond to any of them. On the 3rd day, my mother called again with a softer voice. She said if I transferred that month's payment, she would make it up to me. She said they would come visit Winona for the holidays. She said they would make more of an effort. I listened to everything she said, and then I said no, and I ended the call. By day 5, my father had sent an email. It was long. It listed everything my parents had done for me since childhood, feeding me, clothing me, keeping a roof over my head. It did not mention the $364,000. It did not mention the night I called from an ambulance. It ended with the line, "You should ask yourself what kind of person you have become." I read the entire email, then I deleted it. On the 8th day, Cale called. This time he did not argue. He sounded tired in a way I had not heard from him before. He said he knew he had not been a good brother. He said he knew the money had all been coming from me and that our parents had let people believe otherwise. And then he said something I had not expected. He told me that he had known our parents transferred a portion of my monthly payment into their joint spending account to cover the concert tickets and other personal expenses that month. He had known, and he had said nothing. I asked him why. He said he was afraid that if he challenged them, they would pull away from him too, that he had been living so long inside their approval that he did not know what he was without it. I believed him. I did not think Cale was a cruel person. I thought he was someone who had been given so much for so long that he never developed the ability to stand on his own, and he had protected that comfort by staying quiet when it mattered. I told him I appreciated him telling me the truth. I told him it did not change my decision. He said he understood. 2 weeks after I was discharged, I drove to Dr. Morrison's office for my first follow-up appointment. He reviewed my recovery progress, checked my heart rhythm, and told me the procedure had been successful. Structurally, everything looked the way it should. Then he set down his clipboard and said there was something else he wanted me to know, not a medical matter, but something he felt I had a right to hear. He told me that on the night of my surgery, when my heart stopped during the procedure, he had followed standard protocol and contacted my emergency contact. That number was my mother's. She answered the phone. He introduced himself, identified the hospital and the situation, and told her clearly that I had experienced a serious cardiac event during surgery, that my condition was critical, and that family was welcome to come to the hospital. My mother asked him one question: if we wait 2 hours, will she be dead by then? Dr. Morrison told her he could not make that guarantee either way. She said, "Then let me think about it," and she ended the call. He waited, no one called back, no one arrived. Dr. Morrison told me he had documented this exchange in my medical file, as required by the hospital's protocol for all emergency family contacts. He slid a single sheet across the desk. It was a printed entry from my file. The relevant line read, "Contacted emergency contact at 11:47 p.m. Family member informed of patient's critical condition. Response, will consider coming. No follow-up contact received." I sat and looked at that line for a long time. I had told myself many things over the years to make peace with my family. that they were limited people doing the best they could, that love looked different in different families, that the imbalance between Kale and me was not intentional, just a pattern no one had examined closely enough to correct. I had built explanations that made the situation survivable for me. That line on the paper made all of those explanations stop working. They had known. Dr. Morrison had used the word critical. He had said my condition was serious. My mother had understood exactly what he was telling her, understood it well enough to ask whether waiting 2 hours would result in my death. She had the information, she made a calculation, and she went back to the concert. I folded the paper, put it in my bag, and thanked Dr. Morrison. He nodded. He did not add anything, which I was grateful for. I drove to the parking structure and sat in my car for 15 minutes without moving. Not crying, not on my phone, just sitting with what I now knew with documentation in writing, time-stamped. Then I drove to pick up Winona from Nora's apartment, where she had spent the morning. I walked in, and Winona ran across the room toward me with both arms up. I caught her and held on. Nora asked if everything was okay. I told her the appointment had gone well and the recovery was on track, which was true, in one sense entirely true. My parents could not cover the Atlanta apartment without my monthly transfer. They held on for 3 months by pulling from savings, and then the savings ran out. Their landlord did not negotiate. They had to leave. Kale was living in a 1-bedroom apartment outside the city with a roommate. When our parents had no other option, he let them move in. 3 adults in a 1-bedroom apartment, no financial plan, no timeline for what came next. I learned this from Mrs. Delors, who had stayed in occasional contact with me since the night she watched Winona. Kale had tracked down my building through her, hopping to reach me. I did not reach back. 4 months after I cancelled the transfer, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Handwritten, 3 pages in my mother's handwriting. She wrote about regret. She wrote about the patterns in our family that she had not examined until they cost her everything. She wrote about being afraid to love me the same way she loved Kale because she did not know how, and she wrote that she knew that was not an excuse. She asked for forgiveness. I read all 3 pages. I set the letter on my bookshelf. I did not write back, not because I wanted to punish her, but because there was nothing I needed to say. The letter could not return 8 years of money, or the night in the ambulance, or the moment when my heart stopped, and no one who shared my blood was in the building. Words on paper did not reach back and undo any of those things. 6 months after the hospital, I ran into Kale at a grocery store near my apartment. He was in the cereal aisle with a basket, looking at labels. He noticed me first. He raised his hand in a tentative wave. I stopped. He said he was sorry. He said he had thought about calling many times. He said he was trying to figure out who he was when he was not living for our parents' approval, and that it was harder than he expected. I told him I hoped he figured it out. I told him the work he needed to do was about his own life, not about repairing things with me. And I meant it without coldness. I just did not have a role for him in the life I was building. I walked to the next aisle. At work, I returned from medical leave to find that my team lead Brian had quietly restructured my caseload so nothing had fallen behind. She had not made a production of it, had not asked for details about my health, had simply handled it and sent me one text during my recovery that said, "Everything here is fine. Come back when you are ready." That kind of steadiness, offered without expectation, was something I had not experienced much of in my life before. Nora continued watching Winona 3 afternoons a week. Winona had started calling her by name with a familiarity she used for very few people, and Nora brought the same calm reliability every single time. That consistency, showing up when you say you will show up, doing what you said you would do, had started to feel like the definition of family to me in a way that blood relation never quite had. Every Saturday morning, Winona and I went to the park near our building, not because I had planned it as a tradition, but because we went once and she loved it, so we went again and then again. She would run after pigeons, eat a soft pretzel from the cart near the fountain, and narrate everything she saw in her 2-year-old sentences that were getting longer each week. Those Saturday mornings became the clearest part of my week. I do not have a clean lesson to close with. I am not the kind of person who wraps things up neatly, because what happened to me was not neat. What I know is this: I spent 8 years funding a version of my family that did not include me. I sent money every month to people who told others that both their children supported them, who could not make a 40-minute phone call when I was in surgery, but could sit in a concert venue while my heart stopped on an operating table. I am not angry about it anymore. I am clear about it. Winona is going to grow up and ask questions about her grandparents, about Kale, about why certain people are not in our lives. I will tell her the truth in whatever way is appropriate for her age at the time. I will not protect her from the reality that family is not automatically safe just because it is family. I will also show her, every Saturday morning at the park, that the people who actually show up are the ones worth building your life around. That is the only thing I am certain of. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever kept giving to someone, whether that was money, time, or loyalty, long past the point when they showed you who they really were? What finally made you stop? Leave your answer in the comments. I read every single one, and I know I am not the only one carrying something like this. If this story stayed with you, please give it a like. It takes 1 second, and it helps more people find this channel who might need to hear something like this today. If you are new here and you want more stories about real life, real decisions, and what it actually looks like to start over, subscribe so you do not miss what comes next. And if someone in your life needs to hear this, share it with them. You never know who is sitting with something they have not been able to say out loud yet. Thank you for being here and for listening all the way to the end. Take care of yourself this week. You deserve people in your corner who actually show up.